Well, hey everybody, welcome back to another Vendal's Weekly Arcade Quest Tutorials. So up this week, we have a lot of the new hero, Hitokiri, and it's going to be a lot of fun because not only do we get to experience the new character, we're going to explore some of the new things going on and changes that were made at the very end of this video, but I'm still going to just start it regularly with just the general stuff about the weekly quest before we actually start getting into too much of the new content. But obviously, since we're going to be up against the Hitokiri, we are going to talk a little bit about this brutal executioner's new abilities and how to counter her and play against her. Honestly, also, a brief opinion here, just right at the beginning. This is one of the easier, okay, easier is not the right term. Let's say just better, I think, hero releases that we've had. Because she's actually not overpowered and not underpowered. Now, sure, there's going to be a lot of people that are a little scared of her right now just because there's new things to deal with. But even as far as her feats go, you'll see when compared to a lot of different things, as I'll discuss later on in the video, that she's really right on the mark. And that's kind of nice. In fact, I actually would even give her an additional soft feint somewhere in her kit if it was me, just to add some more versatility and mind games. But she plays great, she's fun to play, the hyper armor is there but only available if the fighter relies on it. And anyways, I shouldn't be talking too much about this now. Let's go ahead and just get into this weekly quest. I started this one with the Kensei, because the Kensei is a good all-rounder. I thought like it would be a good one to learn the Hitokiri. I hadn't fought any Hitokiris before, and so this was me going into it blind. Now this weekly quest, and again a testament to how tough it is to deal with the Hitokiri, is mostly against level 3 Hitokiris with some additional advantage given some extra enemies or extra stuff going on around you, or modifiers, obviously. But none of them are super hard to deal with. I was surprised by that, how well I was able to make it through this quest. My very first clear took me 15 minutes. All subsequent clears that I've done were 10 minutes or less for all 4 phases. And that's including like failings, deaths, load times, everything like that. So this really isn't that bad. There's a few phases that are pretty scary, but we'll talk about how to get through them and why they're not all that bad. So this is the Hitokiri of Jigoku. So this opening fight is Kokujo Jigoku. This is your basic fight against a non-modified Hitokiri that gives you a chance to experience her as she is as a level 3 bot. It also gives you a chance to deal with her moves, learn how they're going to weave together, and almost everything the Hitokiri can do, we've already learned from other characters. If you know how to deal with Centurion's charged heavies or Shigoki's charged heavies, you know how to handle hers with the different timings. If you already know how to dodge Centurion kicks or Warden feints from their shoulder bash into guard breaks, then you're already going to have a decent ability to handle her mix-ups with her bashes. A lot of her kit also does have the Aramusha's weaknesses, which is actually back dodge. But let's talk about some of the things you can do against her. So, besides just taking this opportunity to train, which I really recommend losing a few times intentionally just so you can build more understanding of her kit, some notable interactions that I already began to see in this first phase. Dodge attacks work surprisingly well on a lot of her kit. Certain dodge attacks have the iframes that are almost enough to dodge multiple different charged levels of her attacks, so if you time it just perfectly, you're pretty safe to do them, and you can turn things around with them. And feinting into dodge attacks even more so because she is an AI, likes using hyper armor, which you can exploit. So my only recommendation is just spend some time in the training arena if you're really having trouble with it, but this is as good a place to train as anywhere else, and you'll earn steel for it, so why not train in phase 1 while learning how to fight the Hitokiri. For the second phase, you've got a nice damage buff, and you're against a damage boosted Nobushi and the Hitokiri with extra life. Now obviously taking out the Nobushi is the best choice just because she's going to harass you and has that damage buff. However, the Nobushi can feed revenge, but like I said, that's risky just because of her damage buff. After you take out the Nobushi, this is just another slightly longer hit points spanned fight against the Hitokiri here. You see me mess up right there, just on one of their just like charged heavies, because they can put it at 3 different levels, and that's something to consider. Is they can let it fly, they can charge it a little bit, or they can charge it all the way. But even so, the timing is not that terrible for dealing with them because of how you can react to it, as long as you're quick on your own personal thinking. I also noticed a few really interesting interactions with some other characters while doing this phase and a couple others that I'll probably talk more about later. You saw right at the beginning of this clip, I trade a side heavy with the Hitokiri's opening heavy right there and another one right there. The reasoning for this is even at their fully charged heavy range of dealing 40 damage, the Aramusha can put out 40 to 45 on his side heavies, making it a very fair trade. And since it's a combo ender for the Hitokiri, you come out both of you standing in neutral with your offenses hindered afterwards, and there's really no way for them to continue afterwards. Which means when you're dealing with Hitokiris, you can trade blows with them some of the times through their hyper armor, as long as you know it's coming, if you happen to miss parry on an earlier timing. As long as you're also, of course, using an attack that does enough damage to properly compensate. Third phase, Tokatsu Jigoku. This one looks really intimidating at first because you're up against two shinobis, which are really annoying to deal with in the gank, and a extremely high health regen Hitokiri. The fight, of course, ends when you kill the Hitokiri, but it's terrifying just because you know that the shinobis are going to hassle you. But here's the thing, both the shinobis have revenge down level 3. Not revenge, damage down level 3, and you have the ability to gain revenge consequently. There's no buff for this, you don't have a modifier for your revenge gain, but, with 3-on-1, it's pretty easy to get it pretty fast, and they aren't going to stop hassling you. And because their damage is so low, even taking a few exterior hits from the shinobi isn't really going to mess you up too bad. Because of this, I actually found this surprisingly easy. When I went into it, I thought this was going to be the most miserable phase, but in all my run-throughs of this quest, which I've done like 5 or 6 now, I have not died more than once on this phase. And the reasoning for that is just because you have enough revenge, they do low enough damage that you can turn things around, and the Hitokiri, I think in this fight, might only be level 2 because she doesn't parry as frequently as the other ones do to compensate for it. So you're able to harass her a little more and take some actual risks, and as long as you utilize revenge, or maybe some of the modifiers we've talked about before, such as Vengeful Barrier, you're going to have a really easy time of getting through this phase. Now, it does take some work. You do have to be on your anti-gank game. Don't go just full offensive. You need to play defensive to get your revenge and then knock over the Hitokiri and open up as much as you can so you can overcome her health level 3. So it's not like this is an absolutely easy phase, but it is one that you can push through, and push through just like you would with most characters. The Orochi is also kind of fun to play against the Hitokiri, specifically because some of his dodge timing moves work very well against some of her bashes that are slower, and also just against some of her wide heavies, because you can dodge on one timing, it seems like, to stop the charge level 2 and charge level 3 of the heavy safely, as long as you time it very perfectly. But that was something I saw in my experience. So the final phase, Mugen Jigoku, is a little interesting. You're up against 3 weaker Hitokiris, and you have to survive for 2 minutes. But you do have one of my absolute favorite buffs, Heal on Kill, which is especially useful if there's minions. However, this was one of the first fights where Heal on Kill was not super useful just because of the crowding that happens, in my mind. A lot of times in fights like this, you can disengage and go after the minions to heal up. But I don't know if they nerfed the amount you heal per kill of minions, like secretly without telling us, or if just like it was too hard to escape from them. In short, I don't actually recommend trying to just run around evading them and occasionally healing up with the minions. The Hitokiris are surprisingly good at chases. They're more mobile than most tank classes in terms of their basic run speed, and their forward dash catch has exceedingly good tracking for when you're running around and going around corners and things like that. It's not the best move, so it's not an overpowered move in actual combat play for catching dodge rollers, in my opinion, but for the purposes of chasing down people on the field, it is a surprisingly excellent chase down move. And so because of that, you really do have to fight them the whole time. And it's honestly quite fun to do so, because you have level 2 revenge gain, you can gain revenge quite quickly, and just try to make sure you're chaining kills fast enough to keep your hit points at a decent level. I make a few mistakes here and therefore barely make it through with enough hit points with my Kensei in this fight, but you'll see that in a few other fights, I have a lot of fun just kind of playing around with this. And again, if you have the same modifiers that react well to revenge or reduce some of the damage that you're going to be generating generally taking the perks, excuse me, you're going to have a decently easy time with this. Admittingly, I died quite a few times to this stage, but that was almost always because I was just playing around, seeing how much feints I could throw out, how I could properly move between them, when proper timings were for reacting to them from exterior attacks, and things like that. The fight's pretty fun. So after this, you'll see just a very quick clear on my Orochi and Aramusha. Just to show you that you can get through it with, you know, any class. Vanguard, Hybrid, Heavy, Assassin even. It's all very, very doable. Being ganked by a ton of Hitokiri sounds like it's going to be something that's intimidating at first, especially for characters without blocks, but it's not that terrible when they're AIs. I kind of wonder how the AI for the Hitokiri was written, because the AI for the Black Prior is like really good. It's terrifying to go up against them because they play defensive. But the Hitokiri seems to be built more to play offensively, and therefore you can reliably turtle and turn things against them, which is kind of nice in that manner. But again, I'll just say it, just push your way through this quest, have some fun with it, and take it as a learning experience. This is a great opportunity to learn how to deal with Hitokiris, whether in their one-on-one form or in a gank form, for anti-ganks purposes, because the Hitokiri is the new character that is meant for confirming kills and ganks. That's like what she is designed for. It's what her feats belie her for. She's supposed to be able to deal with that. Which is really interesting to me, actually, because one thing that's already been mentioned a lot in the forums and on Reddit is that she has absolutely terrible tracking. And I'll show some videos of that perhaps later if I can get the right footage, though I don't have any friends that'll be online for me to do so. So it might not happen. Let's go ahead and just talk about it now. In short, her tracking is terrible, like really, really bad. If there's someone standing even slightly in your way, you're not going to hit your target, and you're definitely not going to ever hit 2 targets at once. It's just her hitboxes are so small that it's very, very hard to actually like clean up multiple people in a single swing, despite how large her swing seems to be. This is nice in one way because it means you're not going to hit and stagger your friends much, but it also kind of sucks because if you are in a gank 1v whatever situation, sometimes you will have serious issues trying to hit the opponent that you're targeting, which makes her target switch game kind of miserable for having an infinite combo, actually. Because an infinite combo needs you to be able to have good tracking and needs you to be able to maneuver and hit the opponent that you're actually locking onto. But if, unfortunately, another opponent is standing just slightly in your way, then your character will not slide forward or push past him enough to actually swing the axe down on top of your intended victim. So, with that, let's go ahead and just get into some of my thoughts on some of the new things happening, some of the new content that was added, and some of the other changes to the game. If you're leaving us now because the weekly tutorial is over, thank you for watching, and hope you enjoyed this video. This one is a little simpler, but that's because there's not too much known about the Hitokiri, and the strategy really is just practice with her and learn, because there's nothing ostensibly weird in this fight. Anyways, good luck for those that are leaving us, and let's get into some of the new content. Alright, so the new character, as we've already seen quite a bit at this point, is the Hitokiri. I'm showing off here just a few of my little color customizations at the beginning so you can see how they interact. She does use what they call a Masakiri or an Ono. In a fashion history video I'll do sometime far into the future, I'll discuss how incorrect it is to have a samurai using a large axe like that, but you know, it is what it is. She's kind of unique because she gets to have her ornaments on her shoulders. There's a lot of characters that I would love to put their ornaments somewhere else on their body, and I'm really hoping that someday, just for a cosmetic perspective, they might open things up and make it so that we can put our ornaments on different parts of our body rather than having everyone locked to having it on their hat. That may cause some, you know, conflicting issues with how armor meshes together, but I honestly don't think it would be too hard to do with most of the characters. For example, I would love to just have a plain Aramusha hat or plain hats for a variety of different characters, but have some more ornate shoulder or arm pads. It would be really cool. But anyways, for now, she's one of the characters that gets special ones in that way. The coloring on her arms, as you see here, only interacts with her lower arm guard, not the one that would be covered by the ornament. One interesting thing to note that you'll see here in just a second is her armor is actually counted as metal. And I'm fine with this because in this situation, all three of the factions would be learning from each other's war technology, and it's not surprising that at this point, the samurai would have found the ability to use and create metal armor from either their defected knight allies or just from, reverse engineering the things that they've seen. But anyways, let's go through ahead and just have a quick look at her executions. Or her basic ones that she comes with now. Most of them are pretty nice, pretty clean, and all actually surprisingly quick. There's a few that do have some long build-ups, but most of them really aren't that bad. There's none that are overly cinematic in that way. I will say, though, however, that this very last one looks really ridiculous if you don't have decapitations turned on, because that axe is in the middle of that dude's face, right here, right now. With decapitations on, that one's a little more pleasant, but I don't play with decapitations just because my wife prefers it. Now, we're going to take a very quick look through just all the emotes. Most of which are pretty nice, pretty clean, have some flair to them in how they're designed. Some of them kind of, point out the whole choosing nature of the executioner. This one in particular here, where she punches the axe, I feel like doesn't make a lot of sense. This Salty one is one of the new ones that's available to all characters. I'm not actually sure what that's a reference to. The Penguin Walk, of course, is the unfortunate carryover that for some reason is still on every character's, while Rao is that disappointed clap. This one I like just because of the dust, but there's also the burial reference that makes it great. I like the personality in that one. And then there's the new one, Proudly 70, where the character, pulls their head back so they can neck chin themselves at the very end. It looks really ridiculous on a few characters, but we won't spend too much time on it here. All their combat emotes are fairly simple. That classic salute is almost closer to a prayer pose, actually. But they are what they are. She has a lot of fun new stuff that I thoroughly enjoy, and I like how they've made her personality. However, I will admit, occasionally, I don't like how they kind of add maybe some pride or show-offy flair to her, or him, because to me, this character is supposed to be like the supernatural, somber executioner that definitely is constantly creepy, and so this very last signature, Reigi, is just not quite my favorite, because there's a little bit too much odd flaunting, I just feel like, in the posing there at the end. Talking about her feats and extreme brevity, I'm just showing off the different ones that she has here. Her unique ones, Deliverance, works pretty nicely, but it's useless against people that have bashes and are prepared for it unless we get a fast execution. Tainted Grit is a heal, but it's locked with time getting execution, so it's terrible in pub matches, but really nice if you have an actual coordinated group that can work well together. Her other two, Senbon Sakura, the feat 4, so I'm going out of order here, is awesome in feeling, but surprisingly weak in my opinion for a 4-tier feat. The only thing it really has going for it is the fact that its cooldown is somewhat low, because, well, it just gets beaten out by dodging, by a lot of different things, and it still will only ever take out one person who could even have shields to avoid getting killed. Whereas we've got other things like Catapult and the Spike Storm that are worse. You just saw here, feat 3 is just a damage reduction. It's really nice, especially paired with proper, defensive perks. They changed up some of the colors, which is what I'm showing off here, for what's available in Attacker and Defender, and they also added this new color that we don't have a way to get yet, but will obviously have an event featured soon, that a lot of people have been asking for a while, which is a pure black. So I'm actually rather excited about that. I also showed off the new effect just a little bit ago, the tessellated aura that you'll get from clearing weekly quests. I did not get it on my Aramusha because I made my first clear with my Kensei this time. Showing off here the moveset. I'm not going to discuss her different individual moves. There's a lot of other YouTubers that have already discussed her breakdowns of moves and things like that, and so I recommend just looking into some of the stuff like Hitokiri, Mythbusters, and some of the great stuff by those folks. But I do provide some shots there if you want to screen cap them to look at them if you're not able to just get on your PlayStation right now. So moving into the final phase, discussing very, very briefly the reworks. The Raider rework, in my opinion, made him really strong. Raiders who were actually really good already exploited the guard break on dodge such to a point that they were still able to perform well in most higher tiers of combat, and of course they were always really good at ganking, and this has been only an all-around buff, which is frustrating to me. Now, I'm going to give it time, of course, but my personal feeling is what they've given him is just a little too much. We'll see what happens, though. So under the Lawbringer rework, a lot of people are upset about this, and I understand that. It's tough when the identity of your character gets a little bit taken away from, or destroyed even, as some people feel that it is. And I understand that with the removal of the shove on block, and still not getting any hyper armor. But from what I've heard from people that have played the Lawbringer a lot since the update already, is that they feel like the changes are rough to get used to at first because his identity has changed, but they are versatile for mind games and for a variety of other things, and even for confirming damage in a lot of situations that other people can with the dodge shove into confirmed light, that are very, very useful and very helpful now. So I asked people to give it a little bit of time with the Lawbringer rework. He's not what we wanted. He doesn't have the hyper armor on long arm. He doesn't have the ability to pull people out of certain situations, but at the same time, he is still definitely viable. He may not be Raider viable, but he's going to be fun to see how he plays now and how the good players really utilize him. Well, that about sums it up for this video. So with that, hope you guys enjoyed this. Have a good time on the arcade quest. And remember, modifiers modify your playstyle. Vendel, out.